Okay, here is my presentation on a history of cyber attacks and cyber pirates. Who am I? You might be asking. I am a first year. I'm from Long Island. I am a Mac user, and we just had problems with that. But, we're going fine. Some people call me the danger, but it's all right. My favorite color is white, and my favorite dog breed is the Borzoi. Now, some of you might be asking, what is malware? Raise your hand if you know what malware is. Okay, some of you know what malware is. For all you who don't, I'm about to blow your mind. It's going to be a lot of information. So malware usually is from a file or code. It's malicious software. It's delivered over a network and it infects the system. And some types of malware, the first one we'll be going over to understand attacks that have happened, is the Trojan Horse. This is when the malware is a type of malware that is downloaded onto the computer and it's disguised as a legitimate program, and you don't know it's bad until you actually click on it and allow it to have access. One of the first Trojan Horse was called Animal in 1975. It wasn't really an attack, it was more of a prank, but it still counts as an attack. It was disguised as a simple game like 20 questions, but it copied itself onto other shared directories and spread. The next malware type we have is worms. It's similar to a Trojan Horse. It self-replicates and spreads from one computer to another, but it does not have any human activation like Trojan Horse does. The next one is the DDoS, Distributed Denial of Service. This is when there is overwhelming traffic that disrupts normal traffic from happening. We'll go into examples of how this works, but the overwhelming traffic basically causes a denial of service. One DDoS we have is HTTP flood. So you can think of this one as if you have many systems connected and you try resetting your browser in HTTP, the requests don't take a lot of processes for it to do, but the replies take a lot of process. So after you're doing that a lot of times, it causes denial of service. The next denial of service attack is a SYN flood. In a three-way handshake, what happens here is the attacker sends out the spoof SYN packet with an IP address. The target sends it back, but there's no IP address matching. So then it exhausts the target machine's resources, and the final step never occurs. So it causes denial of service. And one of the biggest malware used is ransomware. This is when your files on your devices are encrypted, and in order to get them back, you'll have to either go to the demands or figure out how to get your files back. So one of the first major cyber attacks, I guess you can call it, is from Robert Morris. He was a Cornell grad student, and he released his Morris worm, and it crashed 6,000 computers on the internet. He ended up getting fined $10,000 for it, but at the time, it's probably a lot more than what it is now. So that was one of the first major denial of service attacks. One of the first cyber attacks in a war was against Estonia on April 12th to May 14th, 2007. There was 128 denial of service attacks against several Estonian government websites and banks. These attacks consisted of 115 ICMP floods, as we went over, and 4 TCP SYN floods, and 9 general traffic floods, such as HTTP floods. One of the next cyber involvement in war was the Georgian Russian conflict on August 2008, during an ardent conflict between Russia and Georgia. The Russian individuals, it was not the Russian government, they denied that, they targeted the websites and brought them down with denial of service attacks, and they defaced some of the websites with political propaganda. For example, this was one of the Georgian presidents before this time. He gained a lot of popularity, and then there was a lot of infighting while he was in office. So then he left, went to the United States, was a professor at Tufts University, came back went to Ukraine, worked in the government there, and then when the election came up again in Georgia, he lost the race and he got arrested because he lost his citizenship. There's a whole story around it, and this was one of the pictures that they added on the websites of that Georgian ex-president saying, "I'll be back" on it. And then there's EternalBlue. This was not really a country that was being attacked, but on Windows computers, there was the NSA found exploit that they kept hidden, and then what happened was the exploit got leaked by the Shadow Brokers hacker group, and then Microsoft then proceeded to make updates and patches, and all those computers that weren't updated were then still vulnerable to this exploit. And then this exploit led to many other cyber attacks that were big to all these unpatched computers. One of the first cyber attacks from this to those computers that didn't update their account was the WannaCry malware, ransomware. It targeted those Windows computers, and it did what the other ransomware does, in encrypting the files, and it demanded Bitcoin for decryption. This is what it looked like, a little scary. And what it did was, it starts at 300 Bitcoin, might be, and then after a few days, it would increase it, and then if you still didn't pay him the Bitcoin, then it would just remove all your files. But there was no information on if anyone actually got their files back, so you don't actually want to pay the ransom right away if you're going to do that. And it hit 230,000 computers globally, and it caused $4 billion in losses. The next malware used against those computers that didn't update from EternalBlue was Petya. This was used against Ukrainian targets. It was a ransomware that encrypted files. It demanded digital currency payment for the decryption key. And it's basically similar to WannaCry, but slightly different. And it infected the master boot record to execute payload that encrypts data on those infected Windows computers. And it caused $10 billion in damages. And then NotPetya came out, which was the new variant of Petya, which was basically a ransom worm. So it was ransomware, but it spread throughout the computers, and it infiltrated most Ukrainian networks. It infected systems without user action, and there was no decryption key. So everyone lost their files that got infected by this. So it's important to make backups. And this one spread through, well, there's different waves from this one. One of the waves went through malware-infected phishing email. So be careful when clicking on dangerous emails. Who has ever heard of Lizard Squad? This is one of the hacker groups that actually hacked gaming companies such as PlayStation Network and Xbox Live. They also somehow took down internet in North Korea, which was not good. And 2 of them were found. I think that's what their picture was. I thought it was a little interesting to add on there into famous cybersecurity attacks. And they actually also took down League of Legends servers on August 18th, 2014. And another ransomware attack was on the US, which was the Colonial pipeline ransomware attack. In 2021, the DarkSide hacker group stole 100 gigabytes of data and infected the Colonial pipeline IT network with ransomware. So the pipeline was shut down to stop the ransomware spreading. And then what eventually happened was the person who, I forgot the actual CEO, I'm not sure if it was CEO, but they eventually paid the ransom of 75 Bitcoin, which equivocates to $4.4 million at that time. And then eventually they recovered it after doing an investigation, but they only recovered 63.7 Bitcoin. but it shut down they shut down the pipeline for a little bit, so that was not good for the economy in general. Now we're going to get into some fun of the cyber pirates. Now, some of you might be wondering, what is exactly a cyber pirate? Well, cyber pirates come in different forms of piratry, I guess. So you have naval cyber pirates. Cyber pirates, navally, they gained access to the networks and systems that powered cargo ships and disabled and hacked and rerouted these ships. There are no official records on the total number of attacks that had happened to shipping companies, because these shipping companies had fear of reputational damage to these shipping companies, to their reputation. 47% of merchant sailors have sailed on a vessel that has been the target of a cyber attack, and 3.14% of sailors have become pirates. Ha ha ha. Then you have some FBI most wanted cyber pirates. So one of the first ones these are actually all found on FBI.gov, like most wanted cyber criminals. You have Wang Dong. This guy conspired to committing computer fraud, aggregated identity theft, and economic espionage. Then you have Sina Kaiser, hopefully I said that right. He alleged an involvement in a conspiracy to conduct a DDoS attack against the United States. And you have Igor Turashev, this guy in the top right here. He was involved with computer malware that infected tens of thousands of computers in North America and Europe that resulted in financial losses of tens of millions of dollars. These are just 3 of the most wanted cyber pirates. And then this was something I thought I should add in. When I went to ShmooCon, I got this cool pirate sticker. And I was like, then I realized they spelled pirates wrong with PEIRATES. So I was like, what does that mean? So I searched it up, and from the company InGuardians, this was their penetration testing tool that they used through a Kubernetes cluster, which is basically a container. And what it does is it enables the attacker to escalate privileges, and it's used to steal and collect service accounts, tokens, secrets, obtains further code and execution. It's ready to go, and it's available on GitHub. Any questions? Yes, Anthony?
When you were looking at the Morris worm,
Yeah.
it was a DDoS attack. Did you, when you were researching this, did you find what was causing it?
I could not remember what was causing it. I remember that Professor Colonial brought it up, the Morris worm, as one of his slides in the cyber attack. I think it was his own type of worm attack, or one of the first worm attacks, but I'm not clear about that part.
The way it was replicating was it would check, like, oh, it would check to see if it was already installed.
Mm.
And then if it wasn't, it would reinstall it. But then there's also like a 1 in 7 chance, like, oh, if you're not installed, I'm just going to put it on again anyway.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it kept going so many times that the 1 in 7 chance kept triggering, and eventually there's like a billion Morris worms on everyone's stuff, and that's how the DDoS happened.
Yeah, because it was not like an intended attack. It just, it happened to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Mm.
exactly what I was thinking.
Thank you, guys.